So, Rob and Lauren send hello to Steve. How are you, Steve?
Very well, thank you. How are you both?
Good. We're good. We're getting slightly hot in our little room in Norwich. It is hot.
It's been a warm one today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Steve, we know all about you, but people that have never come into contact with you, don't know anything about you. Just give us a quick summary of what you've achieved so far.
Okay, quick couple of sentences. I started running in 1981. I ran the first ever Coventry Marathon. Did everything wrong, didn't know a thing about running marathons, and at the end of it, was pleased, thought I'd conquered the world. But the next day and several days after, when I couldn't walk probably for about a week, I vowed I would never ever run a marathon again. Roll forward many years. 1988, I started running marathons to raise money for Great Ormond Street. Ended up running 20 marathons that year, which is about twice as many as I'd planned. And then from there, really started to establish records for multi-marathon running. So the goal to become the youngest person to run 100 official marathon races was the first one. Then I went for the record for running the most marathons in a year. The 200 youngest person to run 200 marathons, and it just carried on, really. And my main goal really throughout my running career has been to try. Originally, it was to become the first person to run 500 marathons, all under 3.5 hours. Achieved that goal in 2012, thinking that I'd be absolutely wrecked. As it turned out, I didn't feel too bad, so I thought I'd carry on to 600. Then I thought I'd carry on to 700. And then the talk about the 1,000 and how fast could I run that 1,000 marathons in terms of average finish times. I got to the 700 with an average of 3 hours 16 minutes. So the goal then became, well, could I get to 1,000 marathons and keep that average sort of under 3 hours 30 minutes? And the secret desire to try and keep it under 3 hours 20 minutes. So yeah, and I'm on 903 marathons now. My average finish time is just over 3 hours 19 minutes. So I am slowing down, getting a bit older. I'm 58 this year. Wow. But throughout my whole running life, I've tried to run my marathons as fast as I can, but not quite to the point that I'm actually physically breaking myself. And I really made that conscious decision early on in my running career that while a coach told me at one time he thought I had a 2:30 in me if I really trained and did it the proper way, I thought, well, that's a great time, and to be able to run that quickly is fantastic. But looking at the whole thing, I thought my strength was in multi-marathon running, so running time slower than that, but sort of around the 3 hour mark as I was running them. But it's like I decided consciously to make that choice, and I'm pleased that I did, because sometime further down my running life, I didn't know it, but I have actually got a blood disorder called beta thalassemia, which actually inhibits the amount of oxygen, because basically you have smaller red blood cells than the normal person. So my red blood cells are sort of 25% smaller than everybody else, than a typical male, which means my oxygen carrying capacity is compromised the whole time. So even to have got as far as I have, achieved what I have with this, I've been gobsmacked.
But and then that sort of leads into our first sort of proper question was, at what point did you make that decision? Because so obviously it wasn't after your first marathon.
No, not at all.
Sort of, I'll do one and see how I feel, or did you always think, 1,000, I've got 1,000 in me?
The next goal, really, the first goal, if you like, getting to 100 marathons was, I wasn't particularly I was particularly bothered with my times. Obviously wanted to run them as quickly as I could, but I was still learning a lot about running that distance properly, and what sort of training to adopt while I was running so many marathons, because you can't adopt the normal marathon training schedule. My times were getting quicker as I was progressing through the 100, and in fact, I've ran 2:51 twice. So the first 2:51 I ran was at Benidorm. Sorry, 2:52 I ran at Benidorm on my 99th marathon, which was a PB at the time. So I knew I had more speed in me. The question is, how far did I want to push it? It was going for the record for running the most in a year. That one of the UK athletics coaches happened to be at one of the marathons, and we had a really good chat about this. And he said, well, the amount of mileage you're actually doing and the way your body stands up to the rigors of lots of miles, it was him who thought I could do sort of 230, 235.
Yeah.
But I went away, completed that record. I ran 87 marathons that year, and it's been smashed. It's been smashed several times since, but nobody's ever run that many in a year. Because my average time for that 87 was 3 hours 14 minutes. So I'd average that time throughout the whole of that period.
How many is that?
That was for like one every
like
4 days.
one every.
It was 2 most weekends, and then occasional weekends there was just one. So that was like a rare weekend.
As a treat, yeah.
Just getting
Mental.
But the biggest thing about that year was the logistic element of it, and traveling and organising all the races, because in those days there was no such thing as multi-day events. There was no such thing as, you know, doing the same marathon on the same course day after day like there is today. I mean, these events are in abundance everywhere. So if you wanted to do back-to-back marathons, you had to travel a long way. And the furthest I travelled actually to do 2 marathons a weekend was Vienna. I'd done Vienna on the Sunday, and before that I'd done the Westland Marathon in Holland. And so it was the whole trip was something like 2,000 miles. There was no such thing as cheap airlines in those days, so the cheapest way to travel was in the car on the ferries. So we drove all around Europe just running these marathons. It was mad. It was more tiring. If you got to the start line, that was like, yeah, I've done it. You can almost tick it off because you've done the hard bit, actually getting there. So, but yeah, I made the decision that year that it was the multi-marathon records that gave me that was going to be the main focus. It wasn't going to be about running a one-off good marathon. Yeah.
Well, do you ever regret that? Do you ever think or wonder what you could have done if you'd gone for one, just hit it really hard?
I don't regret it. No, I think I made the right decision. In fact, I know I made the right decision. You know, if I'd have ran a 230, yes, it's nice to have that on your CV, but it had been a one-off event, and you know, who knows whether I'd have actually achieved it. Had I not achieved it, what would I have done then? Gone back to the drawing board, tried again, maybe not achieved it again, don't know. No regrets whatsoever. I'm very happy with the PBs and the fastest times that I have run. You know, it's I talk to a lot of people, and even though I'm slowing down, they still say to me, "You're still running times I'd give my right arm for."
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it's so you know, while I'm very hard on myself, and I am, you know, I look myself in the mirror and I say, "Steve, did you run your best today?" You know, and I'd always do that. Sometimes I always think, you know what, I could probably pushed a little bit harder during that little period in the race and all this. So you know, I don't think all of us, we're all pretty honest people in terms of whether we think we've pushed ourselves to the best of our ability. So, and I'm no different. And I can honestly say that just about every marathon I've ran it to the best of my ability on that particular day, bearing in mind that I wouldn't have necessarily recovered properly from my previous marathon.
Of course,
so so on that day, on that given day, I've given it everything that I can possibly give. So,
and that's it, the recovery. I mean, I'm guessing you're not doing 87 a year every
No.
The recovery is the key thing, isn't it? So I guess that's it. You know, if you run yourself into the ambulance every time, you're just not going to recover, are you?
No, and I suppose you could. I suppose, you know, in my younger years, I could try and push for under 3 hours, or just on 3, or just over 3 hours, quite regularly. When I say regularly, I was probably running on average a marathon every. In those days, I guess, bar that one year when I did 87, I was probably running about 30-ish marathons in a year. So, and obviously being younger, I was bouncing back. A lot better and recovering better. In recent years, as much as I have tried to maintain a schedule of around 50 marathons a year, and up until a couple of years ago, that seemed fine, although it was, say fine, I mean, it was heavy going, and I was still able to run times sort of between 3:10 and 3:20-ish. But in the last couple of years, since I've gone past the sort of magical 55 age barrier, it's all become a lot more difficult, and everyone told me that it would do. So I didn't run 50 last year. I think I ran something like 45, and my average time for the year went down from around sort of I don't know, just under 320 to nearer to 330. So that's quite a significant change. And
Yeah.
it's really, a lot of it is to do with, it's not just the age, but it's the amount, it's the length of time I've actually been running. You know, when I think back to the fact I've been running marathons really since 1981, you know, we're talking nearly 40 years of long distance running,
That's a year
and
on
that
the
and that does take its toll, unfortunately. So there's a few aches and pains, a bit of wear and tear. The
yeah.
hips ache a lot more than they ever used to, and I find myself having to work extra hard just to keep myself running during a marathon.
Yeah.
So many times in the last year or so where I felt, you know what, I think I'll just walk this bit. But I've forced myself to keep going, because my other part of this goal is not just to run them in the fastest times I can, but to be able to look myself in the mirror and say, I've ran every step of those 26.2 miles for 1,000 marathons.
Wow.
And for me personally, that is very important, you know. Yeah. So, but everybody's goals are different, and everybody has different parameters with how they want to set those goals. So
Definitely. Right, go on, Lauren.
Okay, so what would you say has been your most memorable marathon, and what was your least memorable marathon?
Gotta be a story here, I'm sure.
gosh, you know, it's I think they're all memorable. I wouldn't say there's anything least memorable, but let me think. I mean, I love the big city marathons for the atmosphere. So most memorable marathons, you've got to put London, New York, Chicago, those kind of marathons in there. But I could never run something that big every single week, because it'd wear me out. You know, they are so, as you know yourselves, you run these events, they're really full on, and they take a lot more planning and organising to get there and do the event and everything. The whole logistical element is just a lot more time consuming and wearing. So and the buzz in even the crowd, you know, I love, as much as I love these big city events, I can't wait to get home and just be in silence, because it's like it's so loud. But yeah, and then on the flip side, I just love the tranquility of some of the real kind of quiet marathons, and I've run some really lovely scenic quiet marathons out in the Outer Hebrides, on the Isles of Harris, Benbecula, Stornoway. I've ran on the Scilly Isles, the Isle of Wight, Isle of Man. I've ran up in the field, near the fjords in Norway, Midnight Sun and places like that. And just, you know, I'm happy running as much on my own as I am with people. And that's what I enjoy about the whole sport. There is so much variety and variation. You know, you can run on your own, you can run with lots of people. You know, and you can experience, I think, many different flavors of what a race and an event can give you. Memorable, least memorable. You know, I can't really answer the question. It's blimey. I think for me, the thing that remains special, and not just for me, but for my wife Teresa as well, is the 10 marathons in 10 days at Braithey, Windermere in 2008. Went and did the first ever one in 2007. Went in quite inadequately prepared, and finished runner-up, and came away feeling I'd let myself down. So put in a lot of hard work and effort to go back in 2008 and claim the first ever world record for a 10 in 10. And again, that's been broken, you know, several times since, but it's nice to be the first to do it. And for both of us, it was such a special moment crossing that finish line on day 10. It's a lovely marathon as well, Windermere, and it's just, you know, the scenery is great, and it's a great finish line at the head of Lake Windermere, and it just crossing that line, and some of the photographs that were taken by the cameraman that day, and he captured those pictures you see on my book. He's just, they're the ones from that finish line. So, and then the back cover with me and my wife just a few seconds afterwards. The range of emotions from pure elation to actual relief. It was just, yeah. And then I went back 2009 and I bettered my time, and although I'm happy about that, it was never quite the same, because it's like, I guess the most jubilation I've ever experienced was probably in that moment in 2008. So, yeah. But, you know, there's so many memories. It's very difficult to give you a quick answer to that question. And I daren't mention any of the marathons that I've least enjoyed, because I don't think it's fair on the marathons.
No, we can't name and shame, can we?
Yeah.
All right, Steve. So, top 3 tips for a first-time marathon runner.
Top 3 tips. I think number 1 would have to be fully prepared. Prepare yourself properly, and I don't mean just go out and run loads of miles and get the miles in you. That is, prepare your body to go through the mill. So I'm a full believer in doing core strength work, and I think that initially is probably more important than going out blasting out loads of miles. So I think if you can get your body fit and strong, it becomes a lot more durable, and that gives you the ability to be able to build up your mileage without getting injured. And I think that's a common mistake a lot of first-time marathons make. They start upping their mileage, and while their bodies have been strong enough to cope with shorter distances, their bodies aren't capable of coping with much bigger distances on a more frequent basis, and invariably their bodies break down. So full believer in weights, body strength exercises like press ups and sit ups and back extensions and bridge and plank and all of those kind of very deep but excellent strengthening exercises, just using your own body weight. And also never underestimate how much you need in your upper body, because again, I think quite a few people neglect their upper body when they're doing this kind of thing. They think it's all in the legs. It is in the legs, it's in the glutes, but it's also in your back, it's in your chest, shoulders, everything is, and I've done it for as long as I can remember. From my teens, I did martial arts and I did weight training, and I've just really carried everything through and just adapted as times have changed. So I think that's my first thing. The second thing is, probably when it comes to marathon day, don't go off too quickly. It is an absolute, everybody says it. Everybody says, no, I mustn't do that. I will do this. I will do this. The gun goes, they get carried away. Before they know where they are, they go through mile 1. They were going to do, let's say they were going for 3.5 hours, 8-minute mile in. They look at their watch, 6:53. And they've already blown their first mile. They've gone a minute and 7 seconds quicker. And they're like, oh, I'll just slow down a bit. Too late. Damage is done. They may as well, it really is that bad. If you've gone through the first 2 or 3 miles, you might still feel great. But believe you me, when you get to 16, 17 miles, you will pay for what you did earlier on. Better off to start a lot slower than what you intended. And then if you're still feeling great in the late teens, then to sort of pick up the pace then. Because I think it's important for a first timer to really enjoy that event. And if they finish with a little bit left, they can enjoy that finish line moment and go home having had a great experience. If they end up walking at 18 miles and they're physically and emotionally wrecked because they went off too quick, it's not a good experience. So, and the third thing I would say is get your nutrition and your hydration right, and practice that during your long runs, because that again is the biggest thing that can let people down on the day, because they try new things or they think they should be doing this or doing that, and you can't advise exactly what to do because everybody's different. Some people get on with gel, some people don't. But you've really got to think about when you're running that marathon, where you're running it, what the conditions likely to be, and if it's during the summer and it's going to be particularly hot, potentially you've got to think about how you're going to get your salts into your body, because water alone isn't going to be enough. Water's okay, but obviously it dilutes the salts, so you've got to think about, you don't want to get cramp. And if it's a cooler time of the year, that's fine. But the other thing you really need to think about is your fuel, and getting that fuel on board before you actually need it, so it's in your body ready to be used when your body does need it, not later on when you've passed that stage. And just drinking little and often, rather than waiting until you're really thirsty and taking too much on board. And again, it's a common mistake because there's so much conflicting advice out there, but little and often you're really not going to suffer the opposite of over consuming. So and it's just a good rule of thumb, really.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, right. Last couple of questions.
So, how do you fit in all the training that you need to do?
Go on, sorry.
How much do you do, out of interest? How many hours a week?
Well, prior to lockdown, I guess I'd be running a marathon most weekends, and then combining with that 25 to 30 miles of running training, and about 3 hours a week of core strength training. So that's running 6 days a week with a day off, complete day off. So typically a training day would be either a morning or a lunchtime run of anywhere between sort of 5 and 8 miles. And then later in the day or first thing in the morning, I would do a core strength session, either on the ball or with weights, or just sort of using body weight on the floor. And I'd do that sort of 3 or 4 times a week, and then the run would be 6 days a week. And then I'd also try and incorporate at least 1, if not 2 quality sessions. So 1 session during the week would be hill reps, which I think is one of the best speed sessions, or should we say effort sessions, that you can do, because it does make you a lot stronger and durable. And then I think the second best session you can do is a tempo run, where you sustain a faster pace over a period of, say, 4, 5, 6 miles, that kind of thing. So it'll either be one of those or both, depending on whether I've got a marathon that week. But during lockdown, I've been doing sort of 50-mile-a-week training, between sort of 8 and 12 miles in a single time, and then trying to do hill rep session and a tempo run as well, because I've not had the marathon to think about. So
is all your training get you up housework and stuff?
No, unfortunately not. So it's not. I'm afraid it doesn't work like that. So, and I think the key thing is fitting it around. I was lucky where I work is quite local, so I can run to work or I can cycle to work. They've got showers at work, so I can run at lunchtime. And I think that's the key thing, really, is trying to make it all fit around your normal day. Fortunately, there's no children at home now, so that's a big thing, really, because of the time obviously they take. I believe if you want to achieve things and you've got to put the training in the work, you've got to do the hard work. You've either got to get up a bit earlier and get the miles in, or get the training in before work, or be prepared to do it after work. But for me, the latter, when you come home from work, the last thing you want to be doing is going out and doing your hard miles. So it's either got to be done during the day in the lunchtime, or sort of first thing in the morning. So
yeah. So I've got one more question. I'm conscious of us keeping you too long.
It's fine, no, that's okay.
You've got 2 minutes. Come on.
Go on, yeah, let's go on.
So one is, what has been your greatest sacrifice, through what you've been doing? What do you think is the one thing that you sacrificed?
I think the biggest sacrifice is not seeing family members, and the guilt, really. And I do go on guilt trips that I haven't seen my parents. I don't spend time with my grandchildren, and I have these battles in my head that I won't get those years back. And yeah, I have to say to myself, you know what, Steve, you're trying to achieve these goals. You've been pretty selfish, and I have, and that is an unfortunate downside to any athlete's ambition to achieve things. Is you have to dedicate yourself to things like this, almost to the point of sacrificing your family, or so that's my biggest sacrifice.
And do you think that, that certainly resonates with us, particularly with training and working and trying to make it all fit? Like, sometimes it just isn't possible, is it? So
no, it's not. And then when you are at home, sometimes you're feeling so tired, all you want to do is rest and sleep, or just chill out in front of the big box in the corner, and and pig out, and you don't really want the hassle of kids running around, or having to give people quality time by listening to all their news and what have you. So, and it's I don't quite mean it that bad, but it is difficult, and I say that is the big guilt thing for me, for sure.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Right, we're going to finish on quite a positive note. Hopefully, it's just this for me, because I don't actually know the answer to this. So, what trainers do you run in? What are your favourite pair of trainers?
Favourite trainers? Well, I have changed in the last 2 years ago. I used to wear ASICs, and I swore by them, but they seem to be changed. They seem to have changed their model, and I know the models change all the time, but there seemed to be a significant change. So I did need to find something different, because I was starting to have problems. So I've since moved to 361 degrees.
Right.
And I then later found out that the one of the main heads designers of ASICS, who's quite high up in the company, had a lot of influence there. He actually moved to 361 degrees, and that's the reason why the ASICS changed. And I love the 361 degrees now. It's just, they're a great shoe. They seem to be a very durable shoe. I'm still getting sort of 500 miles out of a pair, but they seem a lot lighter, and they're actually, the way they're designed has enabled me to run more on my fore and midfoot rather than running flatter onto my heels. So my running style's changed slightly, which has been actually a lot better because it's more the style that you should run in. So yeah, I've been really pleased with them. So
all that mileage, you must have quite a durable shoe.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, you do need a durable shoe because otherwise you get through tons. Well, I get through tons anyway, but even more. So
No,
yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
Well, Steve, we're going to wrap it up. I know we've taken up a bit more time, so thanks for that.
Not a problem at all. No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
So thanks for being so honest and open with us. And yeah, hopefully we'll catch up once lockdown's finished.
Yeah, and if anybody's interested in my biography, it's The Man Inside the Machine. Yeah, you know, it's a lot of people have read it. A lot of people are aware of it anyway. But you know, I always sort of plug it a little bit. It's been out a few years now, but it's.
And also, how many years of medals is that behind you? Is 4 years?
That's up to 2016. That's from 1981 to 2016. So, and I'm in. It's work in progress, really. Just getting all the rest of it up on the board in front of me, and then hopefully I've got a bit of space left for the last 97. And we've got to please hope that we get back soon. So I'm sure a lot of people out there are chomping at the bit to just get it back out. And so yeah, well, take care, everyone. Anyway, I just, you know, best of luck to everyone during this period, and keep motivated. Just take it one day at a time, and don't think about the future too much. You know, hopefully it'll all come right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lovely. Cool. Steve, thank you very much, man. Good.
Thank you for having me. Very welcome.
Look after yourself.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.